Recording in progress.
All right. Well, we have two additional motions that have been filed as of today. A motion and eliminate to exclude the testimony of Dr. Richard Oshie, and now a motion for a jury view that have both been filed today. We will take those up at the appropriate time, but we'll take them up later. So are we ready then to return or bring the jury back? All right, let's bring the jury in. And for your information, because of the nature of what we're about to present to the jury, I'm going to give them a heads up and prepare them for the fact that there may be some offensive language in this. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, in your absence, I took up a matter that I'm required to do as the so-called gatekeeper of the evidence, trying to make sure of what evidence comes in and what doesn't is in compliance with our rules of evidence and rules of criminal procedure. That required me to actually view the evidence that the state is about to offer at the present time. I have made a legal finding that the evidence is admissible. What weight you give to it and how you interpret it is entirely up to you, and both sides will have an argument to make about how you should interpret this evidence. But I want you to understand that this evidence is going to contain certain language and statements that people might find offensive of a sexual nature. And I want you to be prepared for that and understand that I'm recognize that may be offensive to you, but I'm allowing it in because of the legal finding that I've made, and I apologize for any offense that it may give, but it is going to be presented to you for your consideration. Likewise, because we are live streaming this and live streaming it on both Facebook and other avenues, I would simply urge anyone who may be watching this on live stream to make sure that there are no small children in the room and no minors that are going to be able to hear this, and anyone who may be offended might want to mute their device until such time as this is over. Mr. Crouch, you may present your evidence.
Agent Burkhart, before our break, I wanted to go into our next presentation, which include data that you have recovered from a cell phone extract. Is that correct?
Correct.
It also includes content from the Facebook of Crystal Daniels, the wife of the defendant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Can you identify this document?
Yes, this is the Certificate of Authenticity of Domestic Records of Regularly Conducted Activity, and this is for the Facebook account of Crystal Daniels.
Thank you. And I'll move that as the next exhibit.
We've marked according to mine as 254.
And Agent, before I ask any questions about the Facebook content, let me go back just briefly and discuss one of the previous videos that we had seen. We watched a video of the defendant leaving his home residence on the early morning hours of April the 5th at 2:24 a.m. or so?
Roughly, yes.
And what direction did he travel when he left his residence?
South on Garner's Creek.
Okay. And when he returned from Love's, which direction of travel?
North on Garner's Creek.
All right. So returning home, he's going north on Garner's Creek.
Correct.
Thank you. Also, did you observe...
Let me interrupt you again, General Crouch. That was in response to the question that one of the jurors had specifically about directional travel, and that was presented to both counsel for the defense and the state outside of your presence when we took our recess, and it was agreed that the state would ask that question rather than the court. Again, whoever asked the question, you should not attach any significance to who asked it. It should be noted that it's only being asked because one of the jurors had that question. So thank you.
Previously, we watched or saw a photo of the interview that occurred with the defendant on April the 6th, 2018.
Correct.
And I meant to ask you, did you notice what shirt he was wearing at that time?
Yes,
And it was not the I Believe shirt.
it was not.
What color was the shirt he had on in that interview, in the April 6th interview?
Blue and red.
And did it have any writing on it?
It did.
What did it say?
Super Dad.
Super Dad? Okay, thank you. Now, I will turn your attention again to the screen, and if we could see the first slide. Agent Burkhart, what is this document?
This is a document from the company Logical. It's dated February 28th, 2018. Returned Joseph Daniels' employment, and it read. Go ahead. All right. To whom it may concern, due to the increasing demands of his position, job responsibilities, quality of work issues, and associated stress level, Joseph Daniels resigned his position with Logical LLC on February 27th, 2018. Mr. Daniels did give a 2-week notice, but due to the sensitive nature of the information we handle as an IT support provider, we felt it in the best interest of all concerned to make his resignation effective February 27th, 2018. Respectfully, William Moore.
Agent Burkhart, this item was recovered from where?
It was recovered from Joseph Daniels' vehicle.
Next slide, please. And it's previously been entered as an exhibit. Just a reference to that.
Yes, it has.
And Agent Burkhart, was this item also recovered from the defendant's vehicle?
Yes.
And what is this?
This is a resume.
The resume of who?
Joseph Daniels.
And can you see this print from your seat?
I can.
And what is this?
At the top depicts the education level, and out beside the education, it says Nashville State Community College, and then below it says Tennessee College of Applied Technology.
And from Nashville State Community College, did he major in computer science and computer network technology?
He did.
From Tennessee College of Applied Technology, did he major in computer information technology with a degree in microcomputer specialist?
He did.
And his professional previous experience was Logical LLC?
Correct.
And is that where we saw the termination letter with the resignation and acceptance of his resignation?
Yes.
And prior to that, he worked with Robert Half Technologies according to his resume?
He did.
And before that, Phone Choice?
Yes.
And we have previously seen these collected after TBI from the trunk of the defendant's car.
Correct.
All right. Next slide. All right. Agent Burkhart, what are we looking at?
This on the screen is a snippet of a Facebook business record, the proceeds from Crystal Daniels' Facebook.
All right. So you, or the TBI, obtained the proceeds from Crystal Daniels' Facebook, and that is the certificate of authentication that we've already moved into evidence.
That is correct.
Pursuant to that, I want you to identify the slides that we see on the screen.
Okay.
In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to walk nearer so you can see some of the small items right here, and we're going to be reading from the bottom up. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what do we see here? Author?
Yes, the author is Thomas Richards, and the next column is sent to 9/2018, which would be February 9th, 2018. The time reads 22:51:03, and since this message is before daylight savings time, the UTC we have to subtract 6 hours from the time that you're seeing on this slide.
Okay. And in the body, what does this say?
What's up?
What's up? And here.
Crystal Daniels says, or Crystal Daniels, you accepted Thomas's request.
And can you note the date and time for that?
2/10/2018 when the friend request was accepted.
Next slide. Now this is where the writing is small. And Agent Burkhart, I'd ask you to come around closer to where you can see. Agent Burkhart, we have a series of messages between Crystal Daniels and Thomas Richards. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And starting with the bottom and going through all the messages, I'd like for you to read the messaging between Crystal Daniels and Thomas Richards and identify the date and time.
Yes, so we will start here at the bottom. The first message is from Thomas Richards, 3/2/2018. How come? The next message, Crystal Daniels, on the same date, because he let his parents tell him what to do and when to do it, and also he lets his family talk to me anyway that they want to, and he doesn't even take up for me when they do it and when I go to take up for myself. He tells me to knock it off or knock it up, and it pissed me off. Next message from Crystal Daniels on the same date. If I was your wife, would you allow for that to go on? Question mark. The next from Crystal Daniels on the same date. If I tells you anything, I ripped up our marriage license and I went and had the papers drawn up. All that has to be done is him sign them, and then the papers have to be filed with the court. Crystal Daniels, the same date. I haven't been happy for the last 3 years. Thomas Richards, that sucks. Crystal Daniels, yeah, it really does. Crystal Daniels, and I have to say I think I started falling for you because you treated me with respect and you treated me like a person as well as you treated me like a woman should be treated, and of course there was that attraction as well, and not just physically but mentally and spiritually, and to be honest, I haven't felt that with him in a very long time. Thomas Richards, I think getting your own place would help. Crystal Daniels, he will never leave his daddy. Crystal Daniels, but I have already filled out a housing and Section 8 application for me and my babies, because he already told me he wouldn't leave his dad in Bell. But I'm not going to raise my kids in this environment. I am a grown woman. I don't need to be living with mommy and daddy. I am too old for that shit.
Next slide.
Starting at the bottom, dated 3/2/2018. Do you blame me? Next message, Crystal Daniels. Sorry if I am boarding you, LOL. Thomas Richards. No, it's good to have independence. Crystal Daniels. I think so too. Crystal Daniels. And with all 3 boys in school next year, it will be easy for me to work while they are in school, so I can pay my bills and give them a good life. Crystal Daniels. And we get $1,200 a month on baby Joe because of his disability. So with me working a full-time job, don't you think I would be able to provide a good life for my boys? Thomas Richards. It would be tough, but yeah, I think so. Thomas Richards. Between you and Joe, you would be fine. Crystal Daniels. What do you mean it would be tough? Thomas Richards. It's tough finding good jobs in that area. Thomas Richards. Compared to here anyway. Crystal Daniels. Not really. Jobs have become very plentiful around here. Thomas Richards. There's so much stuff here. We're in the middle of the U.S., so we have lots of shipping companies here.
Next slide.
Starting at the bottom, Crystal Daniels, all thanks. And this is on 3/2/2018. Crystal Daniels, I think you would like it even more now because of my tattoos. LOL.
And Agent Burkhart, would you return to the stand, please? Some of that was graphic material, and thank you for presenting that. Let's go back in time a little bit with some of this material. Crystal Daniels is the wife of the defendant.
That is correct.
And she is communicating through Facebook Messenger with a man named Thomas Richards.
Yes.
And we saw that communication began. It looks like the friend request was accepted in February of 2018.
Yes.
And as we go forward in time, the messaging discusses several topics. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do we see discussion about Crystal divorcing the defendant?
Yes.
Do we see discussion of her taking her babies and leaving?
Yes, we do.
Is there discussion of her receiving $1,200 a month for Joe Clyde Daniels, and concern that may or may not be enough money for them to live on?
Yes.
All right. Towards the end is when we get into some of the graphic content. Is that correct?
Yes.
And does it appear that the two are engaged in some type of online relationship?
Yes.
All right. Now, the last message we saw between Crystal Daniels and Thomas Richards was, I think, April 1st, 2018. And before that,
Yes.
March. You say yes?
Yeah.
And then before that, March 30th?
Correct.
All right.
You have
Now,
to actually adjust the time, yeah.
And adjusting the time on the April 1st, 2018, we see 23:46:42 UTC. What would the adjusted time be?
It'd be 1846.
1846. All right. And if we could go to the next slide. Now, Agent Burkhart, those extractions were from Crystal Daniels' Facebook, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, we've already been discussing information that was extracted from the defendant's phone. I want to go through some of those extractions that have been made. If you would hit the next slide. What's the time noted on this?
March 30th, 2018 at 11:51 p.m. Google search, anonymous parental test.
Okay. So transitioning in time, we see that communication ended between Crystal and Thomas Richards, and then we see the defendant, through his phone extraction, researching at 11:51 p.m. on March 30th, an anonymous parental test. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is this?
This is a snippet from Joseph Daniels' cell phone extraction. The title is Anonymous Parental Test. It's a Google search. And the last visited, it says 3/30/2018 at 11:51 p.m.
Okay, so on March 30th, 2018, 11:51, the title of the search was Anonymous Parental Test.
Correct.
Next slide. March 30th, 2018, again from the defendant's phone, 11:51 p.m. Did he visit a website?
He did.
What's the name of that website?
Genovate.com.
Excellent. And what is the Genovate website?
DNA paternity test.
And what's the time this was visited, or last visited?
3/30/2018 at 11:51 p.m.
And go back just for a second. When we see UTC -5, what does that mean?
It's already been adjusted on this.
So this is the correct time for Central Time?
Yes, it is.
Next slide. March 30th, 2018, 11:52 p.m. Visit website DNAtesting.com with the question about testing without mom or dad knowing. And what does the extract reveal from this web search?
It's web history. The title is How Can I Do a Secret Paternity Test Without Mom, Dad, or Child Knowing?
Okay. And when was that site visited?
3/30/2018 at 11:52 p.m.
Next slide. March 31st, 2018, 12:06 a.m. From the defendant's phone was a text message sent.
Yes,
And who was it sent to?
it was sent to his mother.
And what does his text message say?
It says, "Fuck this world. By the time you see this message, I'll be 6 feet under."
And the extraction? What is the SMS message?
It's showing the text message.
Okay. And sent folder? Is that
Yes.
correct? And timestamp?
3/31/2018 at 12:06 a.m.
And parties?
Yes, the parties is mom, which is April.
Next slide. March 31st, 2018, from the defendant's phone, an extraction was made. Is that correct?
Correct.
A website visited.
Southwest Airlines.
Southwest Airlines. And the extraction? What's the title? Last visited?
Last visited 3/31/2018. The URL is mobile.southwest.com, and then air, booking, and shopping.
Thank you. Next slide. March 31st, 2018, 12:44 a.m. Visited website Greyhound
Correct.
and the extraction. Web history title is what?
Greyhound.
The last visited
3/31/2018 at 12:44 a.m.
URL.
https www.greyhound.com.
Thank you. Next slide. March 31st, 2018, 12:46 a.m. Was another website visited.
Yes.
What's this website?
Greyhound, destination city, Wichita.
Click on that, please. And is this the cookie or extraction made from the defendant's phone?
Yes.
At Greyhound.com?
Yes.
Wichita?
Yes.
Now, let's make note here. Thomas Richards, what city does he live in?
Wichita, Kansas.
Okay. Next phone, next slide. March 31st, 2018, 12:47 a.m. Visit website.
Enterprise.
Extraction. What do we see here?
Title of the web history search, Enterprise. It's last visited 3/31/2018 at 12:57 a.m.
Next slide. April 3rd, 2018, text message. Who's the text message from?
Crystal.
And what does she say?
Hey, where are you?
And this is the extract of the text message from Crystal to the defendant?
Correct.
What time was that?
4/3/2018 at 9:58 a.m.
Okay. And on April 3rd, 2018 at 9:59 a.m., is there a text message to Crystal?
Yes.
From who?
Joseph.
And his response?
Mental health.
And is this the extraction?
It is.
And what time was that sent?
4/3/2018 at 9:59 a.m.
I'll move a copy of those extracts as the next exhibit.
Does that include the Facebook extraction as well?
Yes, exactly.
That would be marked as exhibit 255.
Judge, I need to move this as an exhibit that should not be published, but I need it to be marked. It has to have a redaction to it.
Right. We'll mark this as exhibit 257. This is a hard copy of what's just been shown.
That's correct.
All right. 258, no, 256. Sorry.
Agent Burkhart, just to briefly review the last set of slides that we watched, we saw some messaging between Crystal Daniels and Thomas Richards.
Correct.
And we that's obvious what we saw. Then did we see some researching by the defendant for DNA and paternity tests?
Yes.
Extractions from, those extractions were pulled from his cell phone?
Yes.
We also saw from his cell phone research going into travel plans to Wichita.
I did.
Okay.
Yes, on the phone.
Pardon?
Yes.
All right. I'll pass the witness.
Was it done?
In regard to the data from Facebook messages, that dialogue that we've gone through, that is Crystal Daniels on her son Alex's tablet. Is that correct?
That's what it says in the messages.
Okay. Well, and you don't doubt that, do you?
That's just what the content of the messages said.
And do you have reason to believe that's not true?
I believe that that's what the content she's saying in the messages on her Facebook.
So you don't know if she was on Alex's tablet or her tablet, or why would she make that up?
She just said that she was on Alex's tablet.
And when did my client, Mr. Daniels, read that dialogue on Alex's tablet?
I do not know.
You don't know that he did read it, do you?
I do not.
If he didn't read that, of course your husband and you read that, it's going to make you pretty upset, right?
Those strings of messages would make
Yeah.
any husband upset.
Right. But if he didn't read those, if that's something between Crystal and a boyfriend in Wichita, and there's no evidence that Mr. Daniels read it, then that conversation wouldn't have anything to do with Mr. Daniels' mindset, would it?
Could go both ways, but the string continues with the text message received or sent to his mother, and it appears that he is upset.
Well, I'll ask you again. If he didn't read that section of dialogue where they were talking about having sex, he didn't read it, how is that relevant to his mindset if he didn't read it?
I can't speak as to whether or not he read it or not, sir.
I didn't ask you that. If he didn't read it, how is it relevant to his mindset
because his wife is having a online relationship with another man.
And so even if he didn't read it, he knew that's what they were talking about.
I don't know if he had knowledge of it even prior to that or not.
So you don't know that he knew anything about this relationship.
I do not.
And you don't have any evidence that he actually read that dialogue.
I do not.
But you're still going to tell the jury something he didn't read and something he didn't know about was motive for him to do something bad.
Mr. Daniels could have read that. Mr. Daniels may not have read that. But this is a very explicit exchange between two individuals, and Joseph is married to Crystal. She inferred that she was on Alex's tablet that could be accessible to Mr. Daniels. As to whether he read it or not, that is not for me to, I do not know that.
Did you read medical reports or interview people in regard to the brother Alex assaulting Joe Clyde Daniels?
That's going to require a jury trial.
Ladies and gentlemen, step across the hall, please.
My objection would be twofold. One, relevance, and two, any authentication of these medical records that Mr. Burkhart was referring to. It sounds like he's about to ask if Alex ever assaulted someone, and if Agent Burkhart read medical records. One, Alex Nolan stayed on this witness stand for almost an entire day and was asked 0 questions about assaulting anyone or medical records, which could have been asked. Two, he's going to be asking Agent Burkhart to read or testify to something that is complete hearsay without any basic knowledge.
Well, let's let him ask the question and let the officer answer whether or not he has any knowledge of it or not, because it may be that that solves our problem. If he doesn't know anything about it, then it wouldn't be an admissible question.
Did you see any medical records in relation to Alex Nolan assaulting Joe Clyde Daniels?
I do not remember the records.
Right. Did you have a conversation with adults in the house in regard to an incident where he assaulted Joe Clyde Daniels?
I did not.
All right. Then I won't ask.
In view of that, I don't mean to cut you off. In view of that, though, Mr. Lockhart, it would appear to me that the questions would be not admissible as to this witness. It may be that another witness, that may be a different matter, but right now I would have to sustain the objection based on the fact he has no knowledge of it, and asking the question plants in the jury's mind something that's assuming fact, not in evidence. So I think we'll reserve that for later.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring the jury back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated.
based on your investigation, going to another subject, based on your investigation, at the time Joe Clyde Daniels went missing, Joseph Daniels was wearing a shirt with an alien that says, "I believe."
Yes.
All right. And in regard to a red, white, and blue shirt, he would have been wearing that days later.
During the interview.
During the interview.
Yes.
And whether or not he had it on that day earlier, you don't know.
I do not.
And do you know if early on the morning the day after, if he had that shirt on out looking for Joe Clyde Daniels?
Can you be specific on
The morning of the 5th or the 6th or the 7th, do you know?
Which shirt?
The red, white, and blue shirt.
I do not know if he had it on.
Okay. But in any event, if Jenny Jones said she saw him on the morning of the 4th standing in a red, white, and blue shirt, that's not consistent with what you have found he was wearing that morning.
So we know that he was wearing a red, white, and blue shirt in the interview. Know that he said that he had on the Ailen T-shirt. So I know that he has both of those shirts.
But not on, you don't know he had them both on the 4th, do you?
I do not know.
No. And your best information is that he had on the alien shirt on the 4th.
That is what the defendant told us, but Ms. Jones explained that she saw a red, white, or a colorful shirt.
She said a red, white, and blue, didn't she?
Yes.
Now, you think the alien shirt was so significant that y'all brought in evidence about that shirt being washed. So you do not believe he was wearing a red, white, and blue shirt on the morning of April 4th, do you?
No, that's what the defendant told us, that he had on that shirt and that he washed it. And we found and we recovered it in the laundry room.
So you don't believe he was wearing that shirt?
That's what he told us.
But do you believe he was wearing that shirt? Based on your investigation, was he wearing the alien shirt on April 4th?
Yes, he could have been.
Could have been.
He told us that he was wearing that shirt.
So whether he was or not, you don't know?
No, sir. I was not there.
But everything of significance on the 4th up to this point has been that he was wearing that alien shirt and then he washed it later.
He said that he had on the alien shirt and that he washed it.
And you're not sure that he did either, are you?
It was found in the laundry room.
And you're not sure he washed it, are you?
I'm not sure if he's the one that washed it or not.
And it was in a hamper with the rest of his clothes when it was taken out. Is that right?
I do not know that.
Well, if it's in a hamper with his dirty clothes, then that's nothing nefarious, is it?
I do not believe it was in the hamper.
You don't? Why not?
Because it was in the laundry room.
You don't have a hamper in the laundry room?
Yes, sir, but it was found in the washer, or it was found in the dryer.
With his other clothes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's not like somebody washed that shirt really hurriedly just by itself. It was just put in laundry with his other clothes.
I do not know the time frame on when he or someone else washed the shirt he said he was wearing when he killed Joe Clyde.
But you know it was washed with his other clothes because that was what was in the dryer.
There appeared to be other clothes. I don't know if all of those were his clothes or not.
All right. Well, why didn't you investigate and find out whose clothes they were?
I was not the lead agent.
Okay.
Then, sir, I had a minimal role in this.
Did you make an attempt later to find out whose clothes were in that dryer?
No, but we knew who lived inside the residence.
Did you make an attempt to find out who washed those clothes?
Throughout this investigation, nothing has surfaced as to who actually washed the clothes.
And who did you ask if they washed those clothes?
I have not asked anyone.
Well, it's not going to surface if you don't ask, is it?
Throughout the investigation and then when I took over, certain interviews had been completed and certain individuals were not able to talk to again. So there was minimal interviews that I could do in regards to that.
Did you ask Aunt Joyce if she washed those clothes?
I did not.
Did you wash Belle? Did you ask Belle if she washed them?
I did not.
And I assume you didn't ask Mr. Joe if he washed them.
I did not.
All right. if someone else in that household, if one of the ladies had washed those clothes as opposed to Mr. Daniels, then it may not mean anything other than somebody washed his clothes.
If who?
If one of the ladies in the house washed Joseph Daniels' clothes.
Well, Belle wasn't there.
Okay. And isn't it true that based on what we've seen that Joseph Daniels' acne will often bleed?
I don't know.
Have you seen, even during these proceedings, him coming in with a Band-Aid over one of his acne spots?
I saw a bandage.
All right.
I don't know what it was from.
Okay. And the blood on his pillow would indicate that his acne bleeds, wouldn't it?
The blood could come from numerous sources off his body.
Okay. And I'm sure you did an investigation to ascertain if the marriage certificate had been torn up or if it was still intact.
There is no divorce that I'm aware of at this point.
The marriage certificate.
Yes.
I didn't
Yes,
ask about it.
Yes, I'm not aware of physically seeing a marriage certificate torn up.
Did you look and inquire about a marriage certificate?
I did not.
Did you ascertain if any divorce papers had been drawn up?
I know that they are not divorced, but I do not have papers.
Did you ask local lawyers to see if they had drawn up divorce papers?
I did not.
All right. This lewd conversation you were talking about, or that you read, if Joseph was aware of that, but as we see in one part, he and Crystal and her boyfriend would have sex together, then he's probably not the type that's going to be too jealous about her having sex with someone else, is she?
Sir, when it comes to relationships such as a sexual relationship like that, I can't speak to what Joseph Daniels feels or doesn't feel, but with a third party being involved in this, the explicit messages that we have seen and the message that you're talking about, it could make him upset. I don't know what triggers in regards to that type of sexual nature for Joseph.
But at least that indicates that he consents to his wife having sex with other men.
That message does appear that he was watching or something.
Well, it appears he was partaking in the sexual act too, doesn't it?
It is alluded to in
All
that
right.
message.
And if those things were upsetting him, the only thing he says to indicate his thinking is indicating that he's going to commit suicide.
Can you repeat that?
If this information, talking about having sex with others and divorce papers being torn up and that type thing, or excuse me, marriage certificate being torn up, the only thing that we can tell from what you've just introduced is that it made Joseph consider suicide.
The message reads that he was going to be 6 foot under.
And would you not assume that he's talking about killing himself?
Yes,
All right. And that was to his mom.
that was.
All right. So he's not telling Mom, I'm going to kill Crystal or kill Joe Clyde Daniels. He's talking about killing himself.
Not in that message, no.
Okay. Well, you don't have a message where he's talking about killing Joe Clyde Daniels, do you?
No, but he confessed to it.
I understand. When did you come in as the lead agent on the case?
June or July of 2019.
And I assume that pretty quickly you had someone go interview the next door neighbor, Matthew Lefford. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right. How quickly did you do that? Since you came in June of 19, how quickly did you get that done?
I would have to look at the date on the report. But I believe that interview took place in about 20.
Well, I don't see the date in the transcript, but it was not in 2019.
No, I believe it was in 20.
All right. And is there some reason you didn't go ahead and interview him in June, July, August, September, October, November, or December?
Are we talking about the same person?
Matthew Ledford.
Yes.
Yeah, is there some reason you didn't interview him prior to 2020?
The reason we went and interviewed him is because after examining the Pruitt Springs camera video, myself and Detective McCartney, along with Detective Sergeant Trevor Daniel, they specifically had noticed an oddity, a light, while watching that video after viewing 24 hours of video. And in that video, we decided, okay, hey, we need to go talk to the neighbor and see if we can determine what this light might be.
And actually, it's a little more than that. Y'all confronted him and told him a vehicle came out of that drive.
Which interview are you talking about?
Either one of the interviews. Did you confront him, and was he told a vehicle came out of that drive?
We asked about a vehicle coming home at 10 p.m. And we also asked as to whether or not a vehicle left his driveway after that. That is correct.
All right. You advised him that you could take his phone and ascertain his location during the time period Joe Clyde Daniels went missing.
His phone?
Yes.
We're talking about several different types of data, yes.
All right. And did you indicate to him that you could use geofencing or any other technology to ascertain where his phone went?
We can use different types of data that may be able to assist us in where somebody could possibly be, yes.
All right. And you asked him to provide the information to you so that you could ascertain where he went.
He provided data.
Did he provide anything where you could ascertain his location?
He did not provide any data that I asked for, no. But to the counter on that, during this interview, we have to understand that Mr. Ledford, we were going to ask him and talk to him about a light that we had seen that was not that we later determined that was not consistent with a car leaving that driveway. While we were going to conduct this interview, we didn't know what that light was. After this interview, a follow-up drive tests were conducted by myself and Detective McCartney. And in those follow-up drive tests, we knew that that light was not consistent with a vehicle leaving Mr. Ledford's driveway.
Did you make efforts to get that information where you could ascertain the location of his phone?
I did not, because I did not have the probable cause to try to get Mr. Ledford's records. Number one, he's not a suspect in this case. Number two, I did not have the probable cause to get the neighbor's records, along with Ms. Dotson's, along with Mr. Smithson's across the street who was moving out.
Did he not indicate to you that he was afraid there would be some information on his phone that would might incriminate him?
Yeah, object. We've already had this hearing.
Do I need to send the jury out?
I don't think so. I think there needs to be a summary sustained.
Your Honor, he's testified that he didn't have any probable cause. That's opened it up for me to ask him about things that could pertain to probable cause.
Well, I'm familiar with the statement that was taken from this particular individual, and my recollection is that he was asked not to turn over his phone in the original interview, but to give some sort of identification number where the GPS could be tracked. Am I recalling that correctly?
Yes. A Google advertising I did.
And you asked him to try to get the phone charged and get that back to you?
Yes.
All right. So you did ask for the phone, Your Honor. And he said he didn't have any probable cause to make any other efforts to get it. So I should be allowed to ask him about things that would show probable cause.
I'm going to overrule the objection, allowing this is cross-examination of the state's witness, so I'm giving him the latitude to ask those questions. Overruled.
And he indicated to you he was afraid there might be incriminating information on his phone.
I would have to look at the transcript to see exactly what he said.
All right, we'll look that up for you. Did he not tell you that he was afraid the defendant had hacked his phone and put incriminating information on the phone?
He said something to that extent.
Okay. If you would read line 16,
Yes, sir.
or that paragraph.
Do you want me to read line 16 or the paragraph?
The paragraph.
What if he picked up on my IP address on my iPhone when I pulled in, and he could do something like that, on the phone where they can give you a fake phone number or an IP, and what if he copied? I mean, like.
All right. And y'all assured him that Mr. Daniels couldn't remotely hack his phone and put something on there, didn't you?
I believe we did. I believe we did.
So if he has assurances that our client couldn't hack his phone and put something on there to make it look like he was over in the Daniels yard, for instance, that night, then he'd have no reason not to turn it back over to you.
I can't tell you as to whether or not why he didn't turn over his phone.
But he didn't turn it over.
He did not.
And you also know from records that he quit using that phone on April the 4th of 2018.
The phone records that he provided me voluntarily did show that phone activity on his phone records did stop. Phone calls stopped on the 4th. As to whether or not everything was cut off or anything of that nature, I do not know.
But it happened on the same day Joe Clyde Daniels went missing.
April 4th is the day Joe Clyde was reported missing. And I assume that you subpoenaed his phone records. I did not. I did not have the probable cause to subpoena his phone records.
Now, you subpoenaed numerous people's Facebook records, didn't you, just based on comments they made?
I did not.
You didn't?
I did not.
The TBI did, though, didn't they?
TBI did.
All right. How many different people's Facebook records did they subpoena?
If I remember correctly, it's 4 or 5, including the defendant and Crystal Daniels.
But other people, too, that weren't a part of this case at all.
And I don't know as to whether or not they gave consent or not.
And y'all checked out leads from psychics who called in and said that they thought he was Joe Clyde was in a whale somewhere. Do you recall that?
I do not.
All right. Do you know if y'all checked out any psychic leads?
I do not.
All right.
I know there were psychics that called in, but I do not know as to specifically which one.
But a man who turns his phone off, stops using it on the same day that Joe Clyde Daniels is missing, and a man you've told that you can locate where he was during the time this child went missing, tells you he'll give you the phone and then doesn't, you're saying that was not probable cause to inquire further, ask for consent to search, go find him again?
We did talk to him again, but as to probable cause, no, sir. That is not.
When you talked to him again, did you ask him for consent to search that phone?
I did ask him and talk to him, and he just agreed that he was not going to provide his phone.
Okay.
But he did provide us cell phone records, and as to whether or not when you're saying he turned his phone off, there's nothing indicating that he turned his phone off.
Okay, we quit using it. You don't have any indication he's making calls on it.
Yes.
All right. So
on the 4th at about 5 p.m.
So he's calling up until the 4th.
Right at about 5 p.m. in the evening.
And then he stops.
Specifically to a lawn care company.
Did you ask him why he stopped calling on that phone?
I did not.
If he had provided that phone, What are some of the things you could do to determine where he was located during the early morning hours of April the 4th?
We were just wanting, it was an ID number that could help us.
Okay.
But here's the thing, is we didn't need, I would always like to have as much data as I can, but the premise that we went over there on is to ascertain what was this light. And we determined that that light was not a car that left the driveway.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the light or car.
Right.
I'm talking about if Joe Clyde Daniels is run out the door and Mr. Ledford goes over into their yard and grabs that child, you could have ascertained his location with his phone. If he went over there in the yard and went down toward the road, you could have seen if it was communicating with the Daniels router, couldn't you?
Well, that would also be probable cause for Mr. Ledford, but that's not what happened in this case. The probable cause was that the defendant confessed Alex saw the defendant kill Joe Clyde.
So after the confession, you quit looking into other people that might have done something.
No, we were still interviewing people. I wanted to ascertain the facts and circumstances surrounding this investigation, and that includes lights in a driveway, that includes Pruitt Springs video, that includes the car that pulled across from 1115 Garnish Creek Road, the mailman that arrived at the Smithsons. I wanted to keep understanding what happened that night.
But you didn't want to know too badly if Mr. Ledford's phone had gone over there close to their house, do you?
I didn't have any records for that, sir.
You didn't ask for any records for that, did you?
I did not have the probable cause to ask for those records. There was nothing indicating that Mr. Ledford was involved in this case. He has never been a suspect in this case.
Did you seek a search warrant?
The search warrant
of Mr. Ledford's phone? Did you ask for a search warrant?
No.
Did you go back and ask him to sign a consent to let you search that phone?
I asked for consent. He did not provide the phone.
Okay. But if he had, and he was communicating with the Daniels Wi-Fi, that could tell you he was over in their yard early morning of April the 4th.
That's not the... I don't know which data you're talking about at this point.
All right, April the 4th, early morning hours. We know that sometime between 10 p.m. on the 3rd to 6 a.m. on April the 4th. If Mr. Ledford, if you got his phone and it showed he was over there at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning in their yard, would that be significant to you?
Anybody's data in that yard would be significant.
And if he were over there and the phone showed it, how would that be significant?
But it wouldn't be significant as to the facts and circumstances of this case.
So if he's over there close to their house...
Joseph Daniels did not say that Ledford helped him kill his son.
I didn't ask you that. Are you saying if you had records showing Mr. Ledford was over there at 3 in the morning in the Daniels yard, you're saying that's not relevant?
It is relevant.
And how would it be relevant?
It would be data showing an individual's device in a yard.
And what would that make you want to do in regard to Mr. Ledford if you showed his phone over there during the time the child was missing?
I would like to be able to look at that data.
And what else would you want to do? Would you want to question him more detailed?
I would like to talk to that individual.
Do you know whether or not canine dogs were ever sent to a location where a little boy in dirty pajamas was reported?
I do not know.
You sat through motions in this case before him.
Which specifically are you talking about?
Well, there's only one report about a little boy in dirty pajamas being reported.
No, I do not believe any. Based on the testimony, no, I do not believe any dogs were sent over there.
Officers drove up and down the road, but that's it.
The Humphreys County Sheriff's Office put in effort to run that lead, and that is what I know.
They drove up and down the road. It's what you know, isn't it?
I know that they investigated the lead, and part of that was driving up and down the road. Yes, sir.
All right, and what else did they do?
I do not know.
All right. You know from testimony that's all they said they did, isn't it?
I would have to be refreshed.
Okay. Did the Humphreys County Sheriff's Department say they searched the camper of a sex offender in the yard?
I do not believe they did.
Did you go and interview that person to see what he knew about this?
I did not.
Did you have anyone else go and interview that person?
I did not.
Based on your investigation and what you've heard other officers talking about, were canine dogs sent to the location where a child's boots were reported being taken off the front porch the same time period that Joe Clyde went missing?
I do not believe so.
All right. If the child's boots were missing, how might that be relevant in regard to Joe Clyde?
I know that that lead was investigated thoroughly by the Dixon County Sheriff's Office. As in regards to the relevancy, I just know that the lead was checked out, and it was checked out several times.
Based on your investigation, Joe Clyde loved his boots more than any footwear. Is that correct?
Right, and they were in the house.
All right. So he didn't have his boots on when he left.
That's correct. Those boots.
And so a neighbor whose child's boots were missing from the porch, would it not logically be something that you want to have canine search? Because, I mean, who else do you think would be taking a child's boots off that porch that same time period?
All I know, sir, is the efforts that were put in to investigate the boots lead, and it was investigated several times.
And there was a barn in that report where a blanket had been taken down and laid down in a horse stall. Did you run canines there?
I did not. I was not present for that search, but what I do know is that it was thoroughly investigated.
But not canine searched?
I do not believe it was.
All right. Based on what you know about canines, canine officers could have taken a scent article from that child whose boots these belonged to, and a canine could have tried to follow and see where those boots went.
I can't testify.
So you don't know that?
I do not.
You've heard testimony in this trial.
I have, but
that
I'm
a scent
not,
article can be used. Scent
I'm not
article.
a canine handler.
Okay. If you're trying to find a child, would you not want to use canines to try to ascertain that?
We would want to use everything, and we did. We used every method after review that we could think of to help try. At the time that he was reported missing, we used every available effort. Aerial, ground search, dogs.
But in regard,
all of that.
But in regard to the neighbor whose child's boots were taken, you did not use canine.
All I can say is that it was thoroughly investigated. From the testimony, there didn't appear to be dogs ran out at that lead.
There were several exhibits about places in the house that were cleaned, trash underneath the bed and that type thing. You're not saying if somebody cleans their house that's something nefarious, are you?
No, sir. A lot of people clean their house.
And so I assume that based on any concerns that the trash was checked and the vacuum bag to see if there was any evidence inside the vacuum bag.
I do not know if the vacuum bag was checked or not.
Was the trash checked?
I believe the trash was checked.
Would there be some reason not to take or search the vacuum bag?
I do not know.
Based on your investigation, my client Joseph Daniels was a black belt in karate. Is that correct?
Yes, in Taekwondo, I think.
And was there a video obtained of him doing karate moves or katas or whatever?
I think there was a karate or Taekwondo video. I don't remember the specific content.
All right, I'm going to ask that we cue that video up.
He's supposed to start hollering.
Damn! Stop, Alex!
Hey.
He hit me right on the arm.
Oh, good Lord.
Ah! No! Quit! Yeah, okay.
Do one more.
Can I see the paper? No, that's it bad. Let me I'm gonna draw something down on it. Straight back down. Oh, okay, no.
Okay.
Oh! Stop it, Noah!
Based on, I'll ask to make this as an exhibit.
All right, we'll mark it as the next exhibit in order, which I believe will be 257.
Have you viewed the booking photos of Mr. Daniels?
Some of them.
May I approach?
You may.
Oh, I'm sorry. What does that photo indicate about the Mr. Daniels as far as whether he's in good shape or not?
In what regards?
In regard, I'll just say this.
Because the depictor, I believe this photo is depicting I believe it's depicting an arm.
An arm, and you can see his side down below that.
Somewhat.
And does his arm and what you can see of his torso, and Lord knows I can't say anything because I'm a fat boy, but he appears to be a fat boy, doesn't he?
Would say that he's heavier.
All right. Well, he was about 282 pounds at booking, wasn't he?
Somewhere around there.
So that would definitely be morbidly obese.
I can't say that. Do you want this as an exhibit?
Yeah, when I'm finished doing this. This area here, can you see where fat's kind of rolled up on this side?
I can see that it kind of bends, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'll move this as an exhibit.
One photograph.
The one photograph. And ask that it be published.
And this is a booking photograph. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Once it is marked, if you'll hand it to the bailiff, she'll publish it to the jury. That is number 258.
Based on what you see in that and the karate video, Mr. Daniels is more of a fat boy than a muscular boy, isn't he?
Sir, Mr. Daniels is not the most obese person I've ever seen, and to even say that out loud, but he's also not the most in shape person I've ever seen, but I think I'll leave it at that.
All right, you didn't see on his arms, you didn't see, or ever, have you seen that he had defined triceps, the horseshoe on his triceps?
I didn't. I saw his arm, and I did not see definition. I just saw his arm.
In this case, it's gone on 3 years, so we've had a lot of different accounts of how things happen. Mr. Daniels' first statement to you was that he woke up at 5:30 in the morning, get the boys' clothes out for school, and then he discovered that Joe Clyde Daniels was missing.
Statement to who?
To law enforcement. He probably specifically didn't speak to you, but you've looked through this file. His first statement was that he got up at 5:30 and didn't know that Joe Clyde was missing, and ended up calling his dad and calling the police.
Something to that effect, but do we have a transcript to go through each of his statements?
Just talking in general, but that changed to a confession where
He told a different story. His story started changing, yes.
and he progressed, and he went from that initial story. He moved and said that he took the lock off the door. He said that he put the child outside, but as the interview kept going, ultimately he said, I beat him to death in the living room. I was hit him with a closed fist, struck him in the back, torso, face. He described after killing him that he saw a wound on his forehead and blood on both of his cheeks on his face. He described a pretty brutal beating, didn't he?
I would like to look at the transcript. I mean, if he confessed to beating Joe Clyde.
And what he confessed to was, by anybody's definition, a pretty brutal beating, is it not?
He said that he beat Joe Clyde.
He said he threw him on the coffee table.
Yes.
He said he beat him about the head and the face and the torso. Is that right?
I believe that's correct.
Do you not know what he said in that?
Yes, but there's also a transcript available if we want to walk through how he described each in very specific. But yes,
I'm just asking you generally.
Yes, he did say he beat Joe Clyde.
And then he said that he picked the body up uncovered and put it in the trunk of his maroon car. Is that correct?
I would. Some of that is, yes.
Okay. So you don't recall him saying that he picked Joe Clyde's body up
yes,
without a cover on it?
I do not remember hearing him say without a cover.
All right. Your Honor, if we could just cue up that confession tape again, maybe it'll refresh your memory a little bit. I don't recall what exhibit that was. Your Honor, I'll withdraw that question. The jury will know whether or not he said that or not, and they can watch the video. So, you don't remember him saying that he carried the uncovered body out and put it in the trunk of the maroon car?
I do not remember hearing the word uncovered.
But he did say he took it out and put the body in the trunk of the maroon car.
I would have to refer to the transcript.
Huh. Now, if we could have just about a 5-minute recess, because the other points I'm going to ask about, I might as well go ahead and mark them. Just a bit of time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll step across the hall. All right, while the jury's out and while Mr. Lockhart is looking for that section, he wants to, there was a question handed to me by one of the jurors that said, last time the defendant practiced karate. I don't know if that video is of the last time he practiced or whatever. One of the jurors wants to know the last time he practiced. So the other question that was previously submitted was the defendant's Wi-Fi passcode protected or an open network? And I think that obviously is a legitimate question. I'll leave it to counsel to ask whether or not they know the last time he practiced karate, or if that has been some information that would have been obtained.
I'll have to introduce that information in another witness. I'm pretty sure Agent Burkhart doesn't know when he practiced karate.
I wouldn't think he would, but we will let you take care of that, and I'll explain to them that that question was asked and that we expected another witness may be able to testify. And then I don't know if you know whether or not it was Wi-Fi protected or not, but
I do not know for sure.
all right, we'll ask the question, you answer whether you know or not. So,
Yes, Your Honor.
are you ready for the jury?
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
All right, bring the jury back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. I have been handed a message, or rather a question, from one of the jurors that I have decided to ask of this witness before I allow Mr. Lockhart to go forward. The question the juror wanted to ask was the defendant's Wi-Fi passcode protected or an open network, if you know?
I do not know.
All right. And then the other question was the last time the defendant practiced karate, and Mr. Lockhart informs me that, I'm assuming this witness, you have any idea when the last time?
I do not.
But Mr. Lockhart informs me that there may be another witness who might be able to address that question.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I'll try.
Clearly in a better spot than perhaps Agent Burkhart would be to answer the question. So.
Now, when I asked you earlier in regard to Mr. Lefford, if the phone had shown that he communicated with the Wi-Fi, when we're talking about communicating with the Wi-Fi or signing on to a Wi-Fi, we're talking about two different things. Is that correct? Talking
About which part of the communication?
if someone's phone is close enough to communicate with, or for it to show on their phone the Daniels Wi-Fi, we call that communicating, not signing on to the
I
Wi-Fi.
cannot testify to that
Okay.
as to whether or not that's a specific type of communication. It's out
All
of
right.
both of our realms.
But if when I turn my phone on, I pick up other Wi-Fis in the area, you don't know if that's called communicating.
Could be a form of communication.
Okay.
As to the specifics regarding the data, how it's transferring, I cannot testify to that.
All right. And as far as you know, nobody has said Mr. Lefford walked over there to try to sign on to their Wi-Fi.
No one has
All
said
right.
that.
But as to whether or not his phone was close enough in the Daniels yard for it to have shown on his phone that he picked up that Wi-Fi, we don't know that, do we?
We do not know.
All right. We'll get back to Mr. Daniels in his confession says he picked Joe Clyde Daniels' body up, put it in the trunk of the maroon car. Is that correct?
Transcript?
Oh, you don't recall? If
No,
he-
I was wanting to read, or are you
Oh,
reading the
no, I'll get
transcript?
it for you. Are you telling me without looking at the transcript, you don't remember?
No,
if
I
he
just
said
wanted
he
to
put the body in the trunk of the car?
No, sir, I just wanted to read it just because we have the transcript. That was it.
Okay. May I approach? Right here on line 23.
Joe Daniels, I don't remember doing any of this.
Keep going.
Okay. Where did you put him, Agent Boyd, where did you put him in the car, Joe Daniels, in the trunk?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So you don't know whether he said he was covered or uncovered, but he did say he put him in the trunk of the maroon car.
So they put him in the trunk.
All right. And then what did he say he did after he put him in the trunk of the maroon car?
We got,
This generally speaking, I'm not talking about ... Did he say he drove the body away and concealed it in another location?
he said that he put the body on McElhaney Road.
Okay. So he said he beat the child to death in the living room. There was blood on both sides of the child's face, a wound on the head. He said he put the body in the trunk of the car. He took the body to, is it McElhaney? McElhaney Road. He said he drove back home and got in bed about midnight. That's the gist of what
Yes.
he said.
In that part of the interview, yes.
Yeah, I mean, later on he tried to show him on maps where he put the body and that type of thing, but the gist of what he said he did to Joe Clyde Daniels and what he did with the body is there. Until later.
Yes, correct.
All right. Later he said bridges, Duck River, ponds, all kinds of stuff.
He has led law enforcement to several locations and contends to keep concealing the body.
You don't know whether he intends to keep concealing the body or if he has given a false internalized confession and believes he killed him but has no clue where he is, do you?
Joseph Daniels confessed to this murder, and his own son, who he stated, said Alex saw it all and he knows the truth, saw the murder.
Yeah, and Alex didn't see what he told you he did he?
What do you
Did
mean?
Alex say he saw him beat him to death in the living room with blood on his face?
Alex said he saw.
He said he saw him beat him?
No, Alex said he heard a loud thump.
Okay. But
And
he
then
didn't
came out and
say,
he saw Joe Clyde lying on the ground.
but he didn't say he saw him beating Joe Clyde.
I do not remember Alex saying that.
And he didn't say that he picked the body up and put it in the trunk of the maroon car.
I believe Alex said he popped the trunk.
He said he popped the trunk, and I'll ask you again. I mean, you understand basic English, don't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do.
Did he say,
Object to the form of the question.
Question is argumentative, sustain the objection.
did Alex tell you that he observed his father or his stepfather put Joe Clyde Daniels in the trunk of the maroon car?
Alex did not tell me that.
Did he tell you that he observed his father drive the body away from the house like he confessed?
Alex did not tell me that.
All right. And so, I mean, you believe Alex. If he doesn't say you put him in the trunk of the car, I mean, you believe that, don't you?
I believe Alex, yes, sir.
So why do you believe Alex?
Joseph Daniels even said he was being truthful, and Alex is being truthful.
So if Alex is being truthful, then Joe Clyde Daniels did not put the body in the trunk of the car at the house and drive it away.
In confessions, people can omit things and allude to things to help conceal or hide certain parts of the crime.
So I'll ask you again. He did not say that Joseph Daniels put the body in the trunk of the car and left the house with it.
No, he said he was walking down the driveway with him.
As a part of investigating these cases, is deductive reasoning and logic important?
What scope are you just talking about in general?
As an investigator, do you look at what people are saying and try to ascertain if that's logical or illogical?
Try to ascertain all the facts and circumstance in investigation, yes. And we try to look at things from a logical, what could be logical and what may not be logical.
Have you ever worked with concrete?
I have not.
Do you have any idea what it would feel like to carry 65 pounds in your arm like this and go a long distance?
I've picked up heavy objects before, yes, sir.
Have you walked a long distance carrying them like this?
I have.
In your arms like this?
I have.
Okay. What were you carrying like that?
Regarding football equipment or weights, yes, I have done that before.
Yeah, I mean, all of us that played ball wrestled and lifted weights, but you didn't walk around carrying 65 pounds going down a road, did you?
You have opportunities to put an individual down and conceal.
Alex didn't testify that Joe Clyde Daniels was covered up, did he?
No, I do not believe you did.
And do you think that it's logical when you have two cars in a truck that you could remove a body with, that you would carry a 65-pound dead child down a public road with people driving up down the road?
I cannot explain as to why Joseph Daniels wanted to carry Joe Clyde away from the house after he killed him. I cannot explain that.
Would it be logical, if you're trying to conceal the crime, to carry the body right out in the open for every passing car to see?
Speaking as to logic, when somebody has murdered a kid, I cannot speak to logic.
And we know from testimony that is a pretty heavily traveled public road.
Sometimes it is, yes.
And we know during this time period from Mr. McCormick that he saw at least two cars pass when he was going through there.
I believe he said that.
And wouldn't you think that if he's carrying a dead child down the road like this, if people saw that, somebody would stop or inquire or call law enforcement or do something?
People being people observe things, that is correct. But I will tell you about that road. Actually, when I walked it, you can actually hear a car coming a good distance away coming down the road. As to whether or not what or how he did it, I cannot explain that. But you can hear a car coming down that road on a rural county road from a pretty good distance.
When you heard Alex testify that he left the driveway and he saw him carrying like that all the way up to Old Garner's Creek.
Can you repeat that?
You heard Alex testify that our client walked from the house down the driveway to Garner's Creek Road, took a right, and that he saw him walking all the way up to Old Garner's Creek Road before he lost sight.
Yes, he said that he saw him walking down Garner's Creek for a good distance.
And you think somebody that's going to try to get out of the crime is going to carry the deceased like that in the public?
I can't explain what Joseph Daniels did after Alex stopped seeing him.
Well, I mean, one explanation is he didn't do that, that Alex is lying. Is that not correct? Is that not a possible explanation?
There are many possibilities, but Alex isn't lying.
You don't know whether he's lying, do you?
I believe he's not lying, sir. That's all I can say.
So you don't believe he lies at all?
No, sir. Humans lie. That is exactly right. But I cannot sit here and say as to one way or the other.
Okay. When this first happened, Alex, as he talked to officials, appeared calm, didn't appear upset, excited. We know he wasn't on any kind of anti-anxiety drugs. He seemed like a normal kid eating his Doritos, didn't he?
Sir, I cannot testify
Okay.
as to why Alex's demeanor was like that after experiencing something like this.
Okay. But you don't know whether he experienced it. You believe it because my client said it.
Correct, and Alex talked about it.
And even though you know that there was no blood found in the house, and even though you know that the car didn't drive away with that body in the trunk of the car, you still choose to believe that confession.
I believe that he killed Joe Clyde, yes, sir.
Was he telling the truth when he told the agents that he walked the body outside the house, put it in the trunk of a car, and left?
I do not believe any vehicle left the residence in that time frame. I do not.
So was he telling the truth when he said that?
No.
Okay. And if he beat him an extended period of time and there was blood, there's no evidence of that.
We did not find any blood in the house, no, sir.
All right. And y'all searched a 6-mile area, approximately a 6-mile radius.
Searched, yes, sir. Searched.
No body was found.
No, sir.
No cadaver dog hit on the maroon car, the trunk of the car.
No, sir.
And if no dog hit on the car and the car didn't leave, because we know that by video, then it's a pretty safe bet he never put the body of Joe Clyde Daniels in the trunk of that car.
At that time.
At that time.
That is right.
Did the cadaver dogs hit on the trunk of that car 3 days later?
I do not know if a cadaver dog was on the trunk 3 days later.
Well, at some point, y'all realized the car hadn't left.
That is correct.
Is that correct? And in fact, you even made an affidavit that you didn't think it had left, and you got a search warrant to dig up in the yard.
Yes, sir. The scope of our investigation changed as in the distance and proximity where this body could be or could not be. And after not seeing that the car left on the video, we wanted to start exhausting all efforts. And one of those options was to go back to the house and start re-examining the backyard.
And where was the car during the time? Car was seized by the TBI the same day Joseph confessed. Is that correct?
Going into the 7th. Yes, sir.
Okay. Shortly thereafter.
Yes, the 7th.
So the TBI had that car and could have run cadaver dogs around it anytime they wanted to in the trunk of that car.
That's a possibility, yes, sir.
But it wasn't done.
I do not believe that was done. But the car was also checked for many other things.
I understand. When you get a confession, shouldn't you try to make efforts to continue to investigate to see if it's a false confession or not?
We kept investigating.
Well, I mean, based on his confession, why would you not run a cadaver dog around the trunk of that car?
I can't say as to whether or not we did the methods that we were using in regard to collecting things from that car were better than using a cadaver dog. Now, I cannot speak as to why something wasn't done, but I also was not present for that back then.
But even after you came on, you didn't ask them to run canines around that car.
No, sir.
And it'd been easy to do, wouldn't it?
Yes, I could. Well, yes, I could call. I could call a cadaver dog. Yes. But as to the methods of testing, that would be irrelevant at this point.
And speaking of investigating the confession to see whether or not it's true, did you interview Aunt Joycey to see if she observed what Joseph Daniels had confessed to?
Other individuals interviewed her, and in regards to the context, we could look at her statement.
And did you interview her in regard to what Alex said to see if he might be lying?
Did I interview Alex?
No. Did you interview Joyce or anyone else in that house
Joyce.
to try to verify what?
Joyce, who was interviewed.
All right. And she didn't say what Alex said, did she?
Objection to any hearsay. He's asking agents to testify.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll withdraw.
Hearsay.
Question?
I'll withdraw. When Alex testified, he testified that he went and opened the doors on a gray colored vehicle there at the residence. Is that correct?
I think he mentioned a silver.
Silver color, okay. But he didn't say the maroon color.
Do not think he did.
And so if Alex has been watching TV and trying to come up with a statement, he kind of got that part wrong, didn't he? Nobody ever mentioned anything about the gray car being used, did they?
Watching TV or what?
YouTube. The motions in this case that have been on YouTube
Okay.
for everybody to watch.
A silver car was examined. and
Silver
to-
car.
Yes.
So maybe he just got his cars confused.
That
Is
was
that possible?
That was Alex's testimony.
All right. There's been some discussion in regard to Mr. Daniels downloading his diplomas and other things to email to get jobs. When he's back there at the house, sitting in the house, he's been instructed not to go out and search, hasn't he?
I do not know what time Mr. Daniels was instructed to leave the house or to stay at the house,
Okay.
or if he was.
Well, what is he supposed to be doing that you would think is not suspicious if he's sitting in the house letting police do their job? What should he be doing? Just stay off his phone altogether?
The first part of this did not happen at the house.
I understand. I said after he was back at the house.
Correct. Now some of this, and he's free to do what he wants, but there are some oddities in that when your child is missing.
Okay. So what do people and what should they do when their child is missing, when they're staying in the house waiting on the news? What should they do that wouldn't be nefarious or odd to you?
Personally, I would not call Nashville State Community College while I'm out trying to find my son.
They've contacted him asking for information though, right?
He contacted them.
Right, and then they sent back replies saying what they needed.
The third party, yes,
Okay.
DeVita did.
He still has a wife and 2 kids and hoping that this child is found. So should he not pursue opportunities to bring in money for his family?
He is free to do whatever he wants. Yes, sir.
But that's odd in your eyes.
There are some oddities to that. Yes, sir.
And if he were watching Gunsmoke on TV, that'd really be odd, wouldn't it? That's about killing. So you watch Gunsmoke while they're looking for your child, you're a killer. Is that odd?
That's not even a question.
I believe that question is argumentative. I sustain the objection.
The helicopters were over soon after he left, is that correct?
That's correct.
And airplanes.
Correct.
And does any of the footage show Joseph Daniels doing anything other than driving around, for the most part, slowly?
I do not. Correct.
All right. That you don't have a helicopter video that shows him getting out, walking out in the woods, picking something up, and bringing it back to the car, do you?
No, sir.
All right. Do you recall when he contacted or asked the jailers to call TBI to talk to him again? Have you viewed a report where he told them that the guy buying the Dr. Pepper at Love's was him?
Which report?
Report that talked about someone at Love's buying a Dr. Pepper sometime after midnight or 1 on the morning of the 4th.
We had a pretrial hearing pursuant to Mr. Locker's request to discuss this information. I'd be happy to get into it.
He opens the door, he opens the door.
Sir.
You know, I'm asking about the call that was made. I'm not going to ask him about what was said later.
All right.
Do you recall that when he made that call and asked him to come, that he said he needed to talk to him, the guy that bought the Dr. Pepper was him? If you don't recall, that's fine.
Which guy are you talking? What?
He referred to the suspect.
I'm confused as to which you're asking about.
Did you review a report that saw Mr. Joseph Daniels had called TBI and said, the guy buying the Dr. Pepper at Love's is me?
I don't remember. I don't
Okay,
remember seeing that.
that's fine. Just say you don't remember. At some point in this investigation, you determined that a good portion of what he told you in the initial confession, at least the part about carrying the body, putting it in the trunk of the car, and driving it off from the house, you determined that was untrue, didn't you?
Determined that the April 4th,
April 4th, that's what I'm talking about.
a vehicle leaving that driveway did
Right.
not happen. No, sir.
Okay. But when you look at that confession where he's telling me he took that body to the trunk and he drove that body off, he's upset. He starts crying at one point. It's clear he believes he did that, isn't it?
Did he kill Joe Clyde? Yes, sir.
It's clear he believed he carried the body out, put it in the trunk of the car, and took it off the McElhaney Road.
He gave several locations even outside on that road at that time. Yes.
When he's given that confession, does he not appear to be sincere in crying and that he really believes he did that?
Some parts.
Okay. So the only parts you're going to think he believed are the
No,
parts
sir.
that...
No, sir.
Huh?
I'm just saying.
So you don't think he believed that he put the body in the trunk of the car?
All I know is that we did not find the body out on McElhaney Road, the initial thing when he's taking us out there.
Again, are you saying you don't believe that he believed he put the body in the car?
He could have put the body in the car at some point, but what I know, the one thing I do know, is that no vehicle left that driveway in the hours of going from the 3rd into the 4th.
You interview people a lot.
Yes, sir.
And did he not appear to sincerely believe he'd killed his child and hauled him off in the trunk of the car and got rid of the body?
Yes.
All right.
Anything further from this witness?
Yes, sir.
Is it going to be lengthy? Because we can go ahead and take our lunch recess. And
Potentially.
All right, just potentially lengthy, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch recess at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be in recess until, let's say, 1:15.
Recording stopped.
We're in recess till 1:15.
All right. We're in recess to 1:15.
Report with the planning.